Isabela Guzman, the girl dubbed the sweet and beautiful woman by reporters, was considered too innocent to be a killer. But according to her parents, she was actually a troublesome and rebellious child. How could someone who seemed so harmless become involved in a shocking case that shook the world? Find out the answer here. Isabela Guzman, a native of Aurora, Colorado, was famously known for her special talent in creating family drama. Her arguments with her mother weren't your average teenage squabbles, more like a competition to see who could shout louder or outmonster the other. But a series of tragic events one fateful day would lead Isabela to do something completely unimaginable, something far removed from a rebellious teen and closer to a serial killer in the making. In 2013, at the age of 18, Isabela lived with her mother and stepfather. She briefly attended Overland High School but eventually decided school's too mainstream and dropped out unilaterally without her mother's approval. Living with her mom, Isabela spent most of her time with friends and her boyfriend, who, more often than not, entered the house through the window rather than the front door. Her mother, naturally, was at her wits' end dealing with this young whirlwind, especially as nosy neighbors frequently reported Isabela's boyfriend's stealthy visits. She felt like managing Isabela was as hopeless as trying to leash a feral cat. How do I even reach this kid? Her mother likely thought, staring at the ceiling in despair. On the other hand, Isabela seemed perfectly fine meeting her biological father, but understanding herself? That was a whole different story. Unbeknownst to everyone, Isabela was battling serious mental health issues. But her family, perhaps out of denial or naivety, dismissed it as typical teenage rebellion. Oh, just teenage antics, they'd say, blissfully unaware that a storm was brewing, one that would leave their lives forever changed. Isabela's relationship with her mother continued to deteriorate. Every day brought new issues, with her mother constantly scolding her over her mischievous antics. But when did things reach their boiling point? The moment her mom caught Isabela sneaking her boyfriend into the house while she was away. If this were a movie, the boyfriend might have been hiding under the bed when mom came home, but unfortunately, this was real life. The tension between them escalated to such dramatic levels that even the neighbors could recognize who was yelling louder on any given night. What happened next? Trust me, this story isn't just jaw-dropping, it's dripping with irony. One day, when her mom came home and entered the garage, Isabela, channeling some kind of ninja skills no one knew she had, immediately snuck her boyfriend out through the window. If there were an Olympic event for sneaking boyfriends in and out of houses, Isabela would have taken the gold. But alas, the neighbors weren't just passive spectators. They were unofficial neighborhood detectives. They often witnessed these stealthy maneuvers and, in true community spirit, dutifully reported them to Isabela's mom. Oh, and they made sure to gossip about it too, as one does. When her mother tried to confront Isabela about the incident, Isabela decided to crank things up a notch. She became more aggressive, rude, and managed to hit the pinnacle of disrespect by screaming like she was auditioning for the Incredible Hulk, or maybe She-Hulk. And just to top it all off, she spat in her mother's face. Who needs a TV drama when this kind of spectacle is happening right next door? That argument left Isabela's mom utterly terrified, to the point where she broke down crying. She was so shaken that she begged her husband to stay close to her all night, too afraid to be alone. The next day, the drama continued. Isabela didn't calm down. Instead, she escalated the tension by sending her mother an email that seemed straight out of a thriller movie. "You will pay." And that was it. Just a chilling one-liner. Of course, her mother didn't take it lightly. Shocked and alarmed, she and her husband reported the threat to the authorities. The police, in their laid-back manner, showed up and assured her mother that they had warned Isabela, claiming the situation was now under control. Safe? Isabela's mom probably thought, "Your definition of safe is very different from mine." Still feeling uneasy, she called Isabela's biological father, hoping he could talk some sense into her. Strangely enough, after speaking with her father, Isabela seemed calm and reasonable, like an ordinary teenager who finally understood her actions. But here's the twist. Seemed is the operative word. No one could have predicted what would happen next. That evening, Isabela returned to her mother's house after spending a few days at a friend's place. Her mother came home from work as usual, likely hoping for a peaceful end to a stressful day. She went upstairs to take a shower, maybe trying to wash away the weight of it all. But moments later, her stepfather heard his wife crying out for help. Panicked, he rushed upstairs and tried to open the bathroom door. Through the small gap, he saw Isabela inside and heard her voice along with his wife's from within. This wasn't a typical mother-daughter bonding moment over skincare. Before he could do anything, Isabela shut the door and locked it. When her stepfather tried to break down the bathroom door in a panic, Isabela remained inside. But what he saw next was like the opening scene of a horror movie. A pool of blood began seeping out from under the door, creeping toward his feet. With trembling hands, he immediately called 911, reporting that he feared his wife was being attacked. If this were a soap opera, this would be the moment when the audience collectively held their breath, whispering, "What happens next?" Amid the surreal horror that felt more like a nightmare than family drama, Isabela's stepfather heard his wife's weak voice utter a single word, "Jehovah." If this were a movie, ominous background music would be building, and viewers would say, "Okay, things just got real." Finally, the bathroom door swung open, and there stood Isabela, holding a knife. Without a word, she calmly walked past her terrified stepfather as if nothing had happened, like she was casually leaving a shopping mall after a weekend spree. Shaken, her stepfather hesitated before entering the bathroom. What he found froze him in his tracks. His wife's lifeless body lay on the floor. Isabela hadn't just stabbed her mother repeatedly, she had also slit her throat, as if she were preparing a disturbingly sinister dinner that no one ever asked for. According to the coroner's report, there were 31 stab wounds to the face and 48 to the neck. Add 72 more stab wounds, and the total comes to 151. Yes, 151. That's more than the number of arguments in a family WhatsApp group chat. Isabela, in her trademark style, left the house wearing a pink sports bra and turquoise shorts. She looked more ready for a yoga session than a court trial, don't you think? Oh, and let's not forget, she brought a knife along. It might have been her latest accessory, though perhaps even she was shocked by the horrific act she had just committed. Her stepfather, attempting to perform chest compressions on his wife, reportedly thought, "She's probably gone." But while sobbing and crying out for his wife, he noticed her blank, lifeless stare, like someone forced to sit through a 24-hour news marathon. Soon after, the police began searching for the woman suspected of the fatal stabbing in Aurora the previous night. Eric Luffer, a reporter on the scene, noted that officers had to wait for a search warrant before entering the house. "I arrived at 4 a.m. and saw several officers coming in and out, so it seems like the investigation had already started," reported Eric, clearly seizing the moment to craft his own dramatic flair. Alright, let's rewind a bit so you can get the full picture here. This is the family home where Isabela lived, a house with a white garage. See the yellow tape stretched across the screen? Yep, I added a crime scene effect to the video. Originally, there was police tape at the scene, but since the story is years old, it's already been removed. Police tape is like a reminder not to cross into a drama zone, right? At the time, the street around the house was blocked off, with several patrol cars standing guard. The neighbors couldn't sleep that night because of all the police activity and the shocking news of a daughter murdering her own mother. The neighborhood was shaken to its core. It wasn't exactly the best place to park your car in a hurry, traffic was bad, and curious onlookers crowded around Isabela's house, eager to know more about what happened. Now, let's take a closer look. The suspect being hunted was Isabela Guzman, an 18-year-old woman who suddenly became the center of media attention. Police searched for Isabela all night, even using a Denver police helicopter. Searching for someone at night with a helicopter? Imagine, the Denver police didn't just rely on patrol cars. They brought out a helicopter, determined to outdo Isabela Guzman's live-action horror with their own dramatic flair. They conducted a search within a 1.5-mile radius, even using reverse 911, which sounds more like a reality show gimmick than a standard police procedure. Here's what we know so far. After 10 p.m., police received a call initially reported as a family disturbance. They assumed it was just a minor issue, like noisy neighbors or a young person refusing to take out the trash. But upon arrival, they were shocked. A man greeted them at the door, visibly shaken and crying, saying, "My wife is upstairs with stab wounds." Police quickly confirmed that the woman was deceased at the scene. From there, the hunt for Isabela Guzman began. The pursuit was swift, and fortunately, she was apprehended quickly by undercover officers during the day. It's fair to say this chase was faster than most action movie scenes. Isabela stood her ground, refusing to be taken to the police station. She claimed innocence and later pleaded insanity during the trial. A thorough investigation ensued, involving expert witnesses and psychiatric professionals, who revealed that Isabela was not in a stable mental state during the uncontrollable act against her mother. Isabela also appeared deeply distressed during the extended interrogation at the police station. This trial seemed more like a psychological drama than a courtroom one. Let's jump straight to the trial. Instead of holding a second trial to determine whether Isabela was guilty or not, the court immediately accepted clinical findings from the police psychiatrist. The result? She was acquitted of all charges due to mental illness. It was like get in and get out without the back and forth of court hearings. Prosecutor George, who seemed more confident than a mom knowing her child can't sit still at home, said, "I am convinced this girl didn't know right from wrong and couldn't act differently given the severe schizophrenia and paranoid delusions she was experiencing. I am absolutely sure of that." Yeah, this prosecutor seemed very sure, maybe even more sure than we are when debating whether our pizza is done baking. Amid all the courtroom drama, Isabela, with a flair for theatrics, smiled and made faces at the camera. A TikTok user didn't miss the chance to capitalize on this. They created a video showing Isabela entering the courtroom, sitting calmly, turning to the news camera, staring for a few seconds, then smirking and pouting, like someone having a bad day. Her expression was so sweet. The video went viral instantly, leaving many people wondering, how could such a sweet-looking girl turn out to be a murderer? Perhaps because she looked so innocent, or maybe it's just that everyone on TikTok forgot that things aren't always as they seem. Honestly, humans have this strange bias. If the perpetrator is attractive, society's response tends to be more sympathetic toward the criminal than the victim. Weird, right? Isabela Guzman, a woman from Colorado who stabbed her mother 79 times in their home in Aurora, has just achieved a step toward securing future freedom for the murder she committed. Though, honestly, it's not the kind of victory most people expected. After 7 years of rehabilitation at the state hospital in Pueblo, Guzman was found not guilty by reason of insanity. In November 2021, during a virtual interview with CBS 4, Guzman revealed that she was undergoing treatment and felt mentally well again. "I wasn't myself when it happened, and since then I have fully recovered. If I could change it or take it back, I would," she said, her tone filled with hope. Yeah, if rewinding time like on Netflix was possible, who wouldn't want to, right? However, despite claiming to have fully recovered, Isabela continues to assert that she wasn't her true self when the murder occurred. "I would never intentionally do something like that because I loved my mother deeply," she said, trying to reassure the public. In America, this might sound like admitting to a wrong click on social media, but this time with far more severe consequences. She even claimed that the incident left injuries on her hands, perhaps more serious than a paper cut from an expired credit card. Even so, she admitted that she needed help and was struggling with mental health issues. Isabela was diagnosed with schizophrenia, though she seemed unaware of her condition, like many people who don't realize they're in the wrong group chat. Her parents, on the other hand, viewed her erratic behavior as a result of a deviant character, not a mental disorder that required medical treatment. They probably thought she was just dealing with the usual teenage drama, not something more serious. Of course, this story raises many questions. Can you really recover quickly just by going through rehabilitation treatment? In America, we often hear stories of people who turn their lives around after therapy, but I don't think 79 stabs to your mother are part of the self-help we're talking about here. According to expert testimony, Isabela Guzman had been struggling for years with hallucinations that were quite, well, interesting. One of them was that she believed her mother's real name was Cecilia, which is pretty confusing considering her mother was clearly not Cecilia, but hey, sometimes hallucinations pick cool names. Even more surprising, Isabela believed that the person named Cecilia had to die for the world's safety. Yeah, maybe she thought she was a superhero, but definitely not the kind we were hoping for, right? Currently, Isabela is still in a mental health facility, although it seems she's almost on the verge of permanent freedom, if she passes her therapy exam, of course. Moreover, her mental health is much better than it was 8 years ago. It seems the treatment worked, and Isabela no longer considers herself a savior of a world full of Cecilia. Of course, Isabela's interactions with society are still very limited and will feel awkward. She also doesn't have the right to live with her stepfather. This is typically the case for someone who has just graduated from therapy school and needs time to readjust to the real world. Like, for example, going back to social media without having to add weird filters. Isabela is now allowed to leave the facility to attend group therapy and other outpatient therapies. Don't worry, though, even though she's out, she's still wearing a GPS tracking device. Because, yeah, we all know that device can help ensure she doesn't get lost again like before. Isabela feels that she has regained her mental health and is now ready to rejoin society, although society still mocks her behind her back or talks about her in hushed tones. But certainly not returning to a world like in a live-action horror movie with superpowers. She insists that she did not intentionally kill her mother and promises to stop hurting herself, which, of course, is what we all hope for her. The family involved in this tragedy is surely facing more than we can imagine, and we can all send our condolences to them. On the other hand, we also hope that Isabela can get the help she needs, but now she has returned to blending in with society as usual, working and playing. Would you want to be her husband? Be careful in the kitchen, though, and make sure there are no knives around. So, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Don't forget, always love one another, whether it's family or the community around us. If anyone is struggling, we can help remind them, but don't forget, the GPS is still active.